Hey, seniors, hope you're having a good Thursday today. For those of you not joining us or those you need a little bit extra direction, let's take a look at our assignment for today. And this is our learning check for 923, learning check for 923. And we're looking at theme. So if we go back and we think about theme as an instance, there are three kind of general ways we see the theme. First off, we see it in the characters. Who are the characters? But do we see ourselves reflected in them? Do we see kind of reflections of that, right? Do we kind of empathize with them? Do we feel like them? Do they look like us or talk like us or act like us? So we start by looking at the characters. And then we look at the action and the things that the character does. And we start to ask ourselves, why do they make those decisions? What were they thinking? Would I have done the same things? What is kind of the what was their thought process, and would I have thought the same way? And then after we look at the characters and the things that they do, then we come back around. We look at the kind of resolution of the story, how things end. And so we're looking at this conflict, and we look at all the things that characters go through. We look at the end, and we look at the resolution. Like, oh, that's how they solve the problem. And then if I look at that as a whole, then I start to see a lesson bubble up, right? Like, hey, I should have done this, or maybe this is something to consider if I'm ever in a situation like this. And I learn that lesson. I get that moral, if you will, right? And so that's what we're looking at today is theme. And in today's reading assignment, The Dummy That Lived, this is by L. Frank Baum. This is the guy that wrote and gave us The Wizard of Oz. And this is a short story about this magical fairy that comes by and sees a mannequin in a display store, and turns it to life, gives it life, makes it an animate object, going from an inanimate object to an animate object. And then this mannequin, it's a woman made out of wax, starts going out and experiencing the world around her, and tries to navigate and sees what all is going on and looking around and experiencing and trying things out. They don't always work out for her. In the end of the story, she's been arrested and she's taken in. And while she's waiting for the chief of police, this magical fairy comes by again and takes away her life, takes away her humanity, if you will, or it turns her back into an inanimate object. And the question for us is then, what is the theme? What is the moral of the story? So let's take a look at question number 6. This is the last question. And this is a simple magical tale that shows the wax lady's innocence as she moves through a whole new world. She has no experience in this world to help her live in this new world. And what she does try to do doesn't always work out. What's the lesson for you? And that's the theme, right? Now, this is probably a little bit more direct of a question than you would normally get. But I mean, it is literally what we're asking for is the theme. What is the moral? What is the lesson to be learned, right? This is a constructed response, and we are looking for a fully developed answer. And to do that, you will use the TPAC model. That guarantees that you have, if you use the whole model, that guarantees that you have examples from the text and that you've analyzed that information. You've given us a rational reason that ties the answer back to the text that you have. So I think the first thing you want to do is start by saying, what is the lesson, right? What is the thing that they learned, that you learned or you could learn by reading this? And that would be your answer in the T sentence, the topic sentence. The theme of this story is, and again, we probably ought to put the theme of The Dummy That Lives is whatever. One lesson that I learned after reading The Dummy That Lives is. So make sure you use that title. Work in the author too. That would be really good. Find an example. Find an example. Let's say that whatever lesson is you learn, you look back at her getting arrested, and you use that as an example, right? So say, according to the text, or as the text states, and you give that piece. Is it going to be a direct quote? Could be, but you could also paraphrase it and refer back to a specific piece of the text. And then you have to put it in your own words. In other words, and then you retell that tale. So you give it in like a different sense or in a way that makes a little bit more sense to your reader. Then you analyze it. That's the A part. And that's the part that is probably the most difficult. The T is using part of the question, the author, the title, and your answer. Those are things that you already have. Then you pull a quote. You're just finding it. You retell it, so you have to do a little thinking, but you're digesting and retelling it. The analysis part, that's the part that really takes some effort, because you've got to be able to tie the example back to that theme, connect those two. Okay. And then as you conclude it with the C, give us your take. You thought it was a good lesson, a bad lesson. You've already learned this lesson. Maybe it's something that you need to be working on or something. And that kind of ties it all back around to you. This is a constructive response. Of all the questions on here, this one, number 6, is the one that we will be grading and entering into RDS. And this is a learning check, so you want to make sure that you do your best work. Also, if you are not here today, if you have missed this, you do need to make this up. If you have any questions, please make sure that you're reaching out to either Ms. McGuire and I, so that we can give you the help that you need and make sure that you complete this to the best of your abilities.